Okay, cool. So yesterday, what we did, of course, we did a deep dive into our brain, how we became who we are today, and how we can actually start to create an opportunity to shift. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to be doing more internal processes. So a lot of what we're going to be focusing on is really, at the end of the day, allowing you to be you, who you truly are. Now, what I mean by that is without fear, without shame, blame, guilt, anger, sadness, resentment, or any of those negative emotions. And today we're going to talk a little bit about the three brains, which is essentially the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain, and how to really align these three brains. And of course, going back to what I originally said was the intent of breakthrough is we all know that there's some challenging times around us at the moment. And essentially, this particular event we put together to help people, to give them resources so that they can actually start to raise their vibration or raise their frequency, however you want to place that. And yesterday we started exploring the different frequencies, and we know that, for example, when our frequency is around 20 Hertz, scientifically, we know that that means that we're in a space of shame. Of course, if we can rise up way, way higher in our frequency and we can start getting to a frequency of like 500, it means that regardless of what's going on in the world and around you, you're not affected by it. Because here's the piece that I really want to give you today. The first thing that we have to understand is there are many people in the world that actually prey on our fears. Because when we get scared, what happens is we will do things that we would not normally do. We might even, become a person that we are not normally that person. So much of what I want to share with you today is to get your frequency up. And so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to look at the brainwave frequencies again. We're also going to look at some of the things that I've discovered in my 21 years of coaching that I've discovered are completely counterintuitive to what you would think is success or achievement. So I'd like to share a few of those things with you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to look at some problems, any problems or challenges that you might have. And we're going to be drawing on neuro-linguistic programming, and we're going to be talking about shifting perspective, like how can you take an alternate perspective? And we'll be looking at that. And then finally, at the very end, I've got this lovely meditation organized for you. So I'm going to take you through a beautiful meditation to synchronize your head brain with your heart brain and your gut brain. Now, this does come with a little warning. The little warning is this. You may, in fact, discover today, because after all, it is a breakthrough. It is about shifting perspective. It is about getting new awarenesses. It is about feeling differently. So when we do this exercise, you may find in this meditation that you actually discover what is true for you. In other words, what is really in your heart. We spoke yesterday about the concept of the fact that quite often what we do in life is we make many, many decisions that are actually based on other people. So they're not really about decisions that we make for ourselves, but they are decisions that we'll make because we please our mother, or we please our father, or we please our partner, or we please the social group that we're in, or we please invisible people that we don't even know. So getting into our own heart is really finding our own compass. I really, truly believe that our heart brain is the brain that we should be listening to mostly, even though it has the least number of neurons in it than any other brain. But it is the brain that is, in truth, our true north. It shows us exactly where we should go. And when I say should, I don't mean should really. What I mean is what is true for us. As I said earlier, whenever we hear the word should, have to, must, it's usually coming from someone else. And it's not really our own thinking. So that's what we're going to launch into today. So thank you very much for showing up on a Sunday morning. So big applause to you. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I know there are some people right now probably not listening to their hearts, but probably listening to their snore patterns. So you have showed up, which is absolutely awesome. So today what I want to do is I want to share some great knowledge, some great insights to help you to break through. So I'm just going to kind of, change view just for a moment before we get stuck in. We covered a lot of things yesterday, and you might have had some time to begin to think about these things. So are there any questions that you might have that we want to start today off from? So does anyone have any particular questions that they would like to ask? And welcome, I can see some old familiar faces, so it's lovely to see you all again. So does anyone have any questions? Hello, Gisela. And
hi, Rick.
How are you?
Oh, good, thank you. And you?
I am very, very well. I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yes.
I think the last time I saw you was at a breakthrough.
Yeah, that was in 2018.
2018. Was that the Raw Courage workshop?
No, that was it not the last speakers that you did?
Oh, it might have been speakers. Yes. 2018 was the last speakers we did. In fact, I think it was there was 2018, but there was also one in 2019, which is when, or 2020, when COVID just hit. And we were in lockdowns and all of that sort of, we hadn't got to lockdowns, but they were starting to reduce the number of people you could have in a room. And I remember we had police coming into our training room, counting heads, going 1, 2, 3, 4, and doing all of that. It was fun and games. Whole new world, whole new world.
Yeah, whole new world.
Yeah, it totally is. So are there any questions that anyone has before we dive into our content? Hello, Lala. Yes, how are you?
Hi, good. Thank you so much. I have a question. We watched, I know I haven't joined yesterday, but we watched the replay, and I have a question about the frequency of pride, which is maybe it's a languaging thing, and my language, like it's my second language, English is my second language, but pride, there are two types of pride, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it is, I thought that's what it was. Pride where you don't want to apologize, and pride where you put your ego first, and that kind of pride. But is it really bad to be proud of something? Like if you, I don't know, bought your mom a car or bought your mom a house or something, like why I want to be proud of that. Like is it really low frequency pride?
Well, the thing is, if you look at the polarity of pride and the intent as to why you have pride, like for instance, cleaning your house, there's nothing wrong with cleaning your house. There's nothing wrong in choosing to dress up or to look a particular way. But the real problem comes in the intent. If it is essentially covering up everything you think you're not. So for example, when we, actually you don't know this yet, but you're in our master's training, but we're going to be doing a thing called aspect therapy. And in that particular training, we talk about the fact that the moment that, imagine a knight, who puts on armor. Now, they may look very resilient and very able, but the moment we put on armor, typically what we're doing is we're covering up something. Like a knight is really covering up their vulnerability, covering up their weakness.
Yeah.
So that's where pride is actually quite a low vibration. It's not really a very high vibration at all. I mean, there's nothing wrong, as I say, to look after yourself and dress appropriately and, comb your hair and, do all of those sorts of things. But it's why you're doing it and what you're really covering up by doing it. And that's where pride is actually a lower vibration.
Okay, that makes sense.
But
yeah.
I asked exactly the same question when I was looking at the frequency, and I thought the same thing. I thought the pride possibly should be a higher frequency, but it's not.
It absolutely makes sense. As soon as you said it's the intention behind the languaging, so it's not the actual word, is how it makes you feel, what you put out there essentially in the world, I suppose. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a great question, and if I can elaborate even a little bit further, something like we all have free will, we all have free choice. We can do whatever we really want, but of course there are consequences into many of our decisions. But something that I'm not a big fan of is, and you see a lot of it on, Facebook, where people will, start to take photos of themselves in front of Lamborghinis and Maseratis and Bugattis and, all of these sorts of things. And the reason that they're doing it quite often actually is not really good intent. It's actually kind of saying, look what I've got. And if you want what I've got, you've got to jump in my program, or you've got to buy this or buy that. And I don't really like that as a marketing tactic. I just think it's actually really cheap. But if you think about, the actual intent, they're using fear, essentially fear of lack or fear of loss or fear of not having. And so the intent isn't that great. Now, it's fine to have a really nice car. If you really like nice cars and you want to buy a nice car, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But it's when we put that up in front of people to basically elevate ourselves, it's because we cannot elevate ourselves by ourselves. We need other people in order to elevate ourselves.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. It makes perfect sense.
Excellent. And a really good question. Hello, Dane. I can see you in the back.
Hey, Rick. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Cool, folks. So are there any questions before we deep dive today? Okay, I'm not hearing any questions, so let's get stuck into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share the slides that I've prepared for today to help us along, and let's start from the beginning. So basically we're in day 2 of breakthrough, where yesterday was all about what, it was all mindset, it was all about how does the brain function, how do we become who we become, and what are the filters of the brain, and what are some of the decisions that we make. And in truth, when we're born, we're kind of a clean slate, and the moment that we start hearing things, feeling, seeing, experiencing things through our senses, we start to make meaning of those things. So yesterday, that's what it was all about. And today is more about the how. So how do we actually break through? How do we start to find our true selves? How do we find who we truly, truly are? So that's what we're focusing on today. But the first thing that I want to give you is some of the things that I've learned over 21 years of coaching. And the great thing, I've seen a lot of posts, a lot of people talking about the fact that, you go out and you start working with clients, and your clients come to you usually with many of the problems that you have for yourself. And so as you're coaching, helping, healing people, you are actually quite often healing yourself. And that's absolutely so true. Of course, you do get to a point where that no longer happens, and you start just getting lots and lots of clients that are not reflecting your own thoughts and patterns. But in the early days, it seems to be very much along that line. But over the 21 years, these are some of the things that I've learned that I really wanted to share with you, just sort of from a big picture perspective. And, one of those things is that people often complain about, I don't have enough energy. And of course, the first thing they'll do is they'll lay down, they'll rest, they won't move their body, and they will train their body to basically expect that this is the normal. And so counterintuitively, if you want more energy, you've got to give more energy. So to get more energy, it seems completely counterintuitive, but a good thing to do is get up and do some exercise, or just simply move your body. And you will find that you get a lot more energy when you move. Now, equally so, if you think you're not clever, study like you are. And, that too is counterintuitive. I remember, and I shared actually yesterday in the training, that when I was growing up, I really believed that I was stupid. And one of the things that I wouldn't do is I wouldn't put myself in a course. I wouldn't study because I believed that I was not clever. And so I learned counterintuitively, a great way to get clever is just to put yourself in environments where you're going to be learning a lot. And so again, that's quite counterintuitive. Another one is that I learned this actually came from one of my mentors in the early days. I didn't learn this from any course or any coaching, but it made a lot of sense once I did it. And one of my mentors said, if you want to get more from life, give more. And that can happen in so many different ways. And for example, I wrote in one of my books this particular insight, and I wrote it in the context of a smorgasbord. And I put in there, who is the richer person? The person who goes to the smorgasbord and can take whatever they want, or the person who provides the smorgasbord? And, it's quite rhetorical. Of course, the answer is the person who, gives, the person who gives that food. And so something that I learned from my mentor, he said, if you want more from life, which I did back then, I wanted a lot more from life. He said, what you've got to do is you've got to give more of you. You've got to give more of your value. And if you feel or think you don't have a great deal of value, then create some. Become the value that you want to be in the world. A little akin to what Gandhi said, be the change that you want to see in the world. The fourth thing that I want to share with you, if you're tired all the time, sleep less. Now, that might seem incredibly counterintuitive, but this comes down to how we often teach our brain. If, again, a little bit like the energy concept, is that when you are tired, typically what people will do is they'll sleep a lot. Now, if you sleep too much, you can be prone to things like anxiety and depression, because essentially your brain is going to start to reduce its activity. Think about it in this context. Your brain is often sending out signals through your nervous system, and it's kind of going, okay, what's happening? What's going on? And if it sends out signals into your nervous system and the answer to what's happening, what's going on is nothing, I'm just laying here sleeping, then what's going to happen is your body's going to go through a process of shutting things down. It's one of my mentors said to me that to keep things alive, you've got to keep moving them. Everything from water. To keep water alive, of course, if you don't move water, it goes stagnant and it then goes toxic. The body's no different. So if we don't move, we start to become toxic. So it is important that we create a ritual. And rituals, I'm a big believer in. For example, a ritual that our family has is that, every evening we go for a walk as a family. And, we take our dog and go for a walk. Every morning, usually Monday to Friday, we go take our dog for a walk on the beach. So it's just a ritual that just keeps, it's not a mass amount of exercise if you think about it, but it's enough with regularity that keeps your body well. And as we were sharing yesterday, the whole idea there is, if you want the next decade to be very, very healthy, then this decade you really need to look after your body. And the next thing is, if you feel bad, think happy thoughts. Now, by the way, this is totally counterintuitive. If you're not feeling all that good, typically your thinking will follow, and you will think bad thoughts. You will bring your frequency down, your energy down. And it is very difficult, I will say, for most people to get out of feeling bad by having happy thoughts. It doesn't make sense, because you think what you feel and you feel what you think. So it's a bit of a loop. It's a bit of a cycle. So the complete counterintuitive thing to do is now put yourself in an environment where you can start thinking happy thoughts. For example, when I was in my adolescence, I had horrible patterns. I would listen to very sad music. I would watch very sad movies. And there was a lot of sadness around me. And it was kind of self-replicating. And I was replicating it over and over and over again in my life. So the thing to do here is, if you're feeling bad, immediately start thinking about what you could do that's going to get you out of that state. What's actually going to shift you out of that state. And that is so, so key, so important. Your brain won't want to do it. You won't want to do it. But it's one of those things that you've got to become conscious, got to wake up and go, okay, this is not serving me. Let's get out of this. Now, if we go to number one, if you're at number 5, feeling bad, jump to number 1, go out and do some exercise. And I remember having a conversation with a lady who I could tell she wasn't in a great space. And she had to make a fairly big decision in our phone call. And I thought to myself, there's no way she could make that decision in this phone call in this state. So I said to her, look, would it be okay if we just got off this phone call and got back on in about 30 minutes, but I'd like you to do something. And she said, what's that? I said, I'd like you to go walking around the block vigorously, like start off slow and then speed it up, and then get back on the call. And she said, why would I do that? And I said, just trust me on it. And she said, okay. So she did. When she came back on the call, she was in such a different state, and she was able to make the big decision that she had to make. And it was just a 20-minute break. I don't even think it took that long. And before we knew it, she was in a completely different place. The next thing, if you're scared, do something courageous. One thing, when I was writing a book called Raw Courage, I thought to myself, how am I going to open this book? I really want to share strategies as to how to get courageous. How am I going to open this book? And I thought, okay, I'm going to talk about my life. When I was a kid, I was the scaredest kid on the planet, I think. Well, certainly in my mind. I was scared of everything. I was scared of bullies. I was scared of teachers. I was scared of being hit, scared of being hurt. I was scared of everything. And what I ended up doing is I decided to do very small things first. And that was, I would go to a restaurant. I used to be painfully slow in making my decision as to what I was going to choose from the menu. And, I would read the entire menu, usually twice, and then make a decision. You could imagine how frustrating I would have been at a Chinese restaurant where the menus are like Bibles. So the thing is that what I did as a courageous act is I decided that I was going to make a decision within seconds, not minutes, within seconds. And it was just a small courageous act, but it freaked me out every time I had to do it. But eventually I trained my brain to say that this is okay, I can do this. And then I did more and more and more courageous things. So start small, but if you're scared, do something courageous, and again, this is, as you can get a sense, this is all training your brain. Now, if things are bad, think them good. So what I mean by that is everything that we call bad actually has an opportunity. but we can't see the opportunity if we think they're bad. So if something's bad, something's going bad, or something's gone bad, then think, what is the value? What am I learning from this experience? Or what could I be learning from this experience? Now, this kind of comes from neuro-linguistic programming, a process called timeline that I discussed yesterday. And it's one of my favorite tools in NLP practitioner training. And it's a technique and a process that helps people to just get rid of all the bad stuff of the past. And it's one of my favorite techniques, and it's helped literally tens of thousands of people. It's a very, very cool tool. So when things are bad, look for the learning opportunity. So I just kind of felt to give you some of these counterintuitive things that I've learned over 21 years of coaching. And, these have become not only things I've learned, but they've become philosophies, they've become insights, and in many ways, they've become rituals. And when you build rituals in your life, you will create enormous opportunity. So let's move on to what we were talking about yesterday, and what Lala was talking about earlier, where she was referring to this word pride. And pride is just above anger at about 175 Hertz. So if you've just joined in and you weren't here yesterday, just to give you a sense of this is what's called the emotional frequency scale. And this emotional frequency scale, this basically has been measured as to various emotions that we can experience, and what would their calibrated Hertz rating be? So a Hertz is basically a pulse that goes through a second. So if you have one pulse going through a second, that's 1 Hertz. If you have 20 pulses going through a second, that is 20 Hertz, and so forth. So what we've got at the bottom, of course, is we've got shame. And when we go right up to the top, we get to a position of enlightenment. Now, the thing that we're going to be doing at the end of today, which will happen at around, just before 12:30, we'll be doing a meditation to get our frequency up around 500 Hertz. So that's going to be the intent of that particular meditation. And of course, it's going to be recorded, so you can listen to it again and again and again and again. And we might even create an audio of it and then give you that too, so you can just basically, use it anytime you like. So the thing that we were talking about here is that if we sit, somewhere around fear, between fear and pride, somewhere around here, let's call them bad vibrations. The way, in essence, that the world acts with us is that if we are having bad vibrations, for example, we can start attracting bad vibrations. The example that I gave yesterday was, if you're angry and you're in a car, it could actually attract some very bad vibrations, coming your way. If you think about this in a very logical sense, someone who is really angry and is in a car, you've got someone in a bad state with essentially a lethal weapon. And so the thing that often I like to share is that everything at the end of the day is equated to your frequency. So whatever your frequency is what your life is. It's the same. Your life will match the frequency that you rate at. So for example, if I just go back a couple of steps here, this frequency of fear at 100 Hertz here, when we are scared, we will bring scary situations our way. So what we can do, of course, is going with some of the tips that I provided just before this particular slide, those 7 insights that are counterintuitive. What this can actually do is this can lift our frequency. And I sent out an email to everyone. I think we scheduled it last night. You should have got it this morning. but it had a video there, which is one of my favorites. It's called Abundance Beyond Limits. So we put it on YouTube so that anyone can listen to it for free. And it's an audio that I like to listen to at least once a week. Quite often I'll listen to it more than once a week. And I just put it on and I put my earbuds in and I just listen to it, usually before I go to sleep. And then it'll get to the end of the YouTube. And of course, an ad will come on and then that will bring me back and I'll just turn off my phone and go to sleep. But I go to sleep in a really great space, and it's all about getting the frequency up. So that's essentially what we were covering yesterday, and we were talking a lot about frequency. So today it's about getting that frequency up. So what I wanted to share is 7 keys to raise your vibration. So one thing that you can actually do is to balance out what is known as your autonomous nervous system, or your autonomic nervous system. So the way to do that is with breath. And if you follow many of the various doctrines or religions or spiritual veins, many of them use breath. Many of them use breath to be able to, get a person to become calm and resourceful. So many years ago, I learnt with a very talented man, a gentleman by the name of Marvin Oka, and he and a gentleman called Grant Sasula created a thing called embraining. And it basically, what he did, and I'm going to teach you a bit of it today. And what he did is they did a lot of research together with places like the Heart Math Institute, and many people like Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, and people like that are very big into this. And I am big into this too, because what it actually does, it's a very simple technique. Anyone can do this. It'll take me about probably 20 seconds to teach it to you. And it's so easy to do. But essentially, what we have is we have our sympathetic nervous system, and our sympathetic nervous system is a fight. It's when we want to fight. That's our sympathetic nervous system. So in other words, when we breathe in more than we breathe out, what happens is we activate our sympathetic nervous system. So what that means is that we're taking in a breath, getting ready to fight or to run. And when we do that, our sympathetic nervous system is engaged. Now, conversely, when we breathe out more than breathe in, and you'll hear this when you see people do this. That's quit. That's give up. That's our parasympathetic nervous system. So when people breathe out more than breathe in, they usually activate their parasympathetic nervous system. Now, fight and flight and quit and give up or freeze or fawn is not exactly ideal as far as being in the most resourceful state. So as I say, it only takes about 20 seconds to teach you this. Basically, all you're doing is breathing in and as deep as you can for about 6 seconds, and breathing out as far as you can for about 6 seconds. So 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. It's that simple. So if you can do that, for which it'll feel odd, it won't feel normal, because normally most people tend to breathe more shallow and fast. Now, by the way, if you breathe shallow and fast, you're going to mimic anxiety. And if you keep breathing shallow and fast, your brain will actually think you're anxious and you will become anxious. So conversely, if we breathe in really deep and slow, your brain is going to be saying, oh, this is good. I'm getting all this oxygen into my brain. I'm getting all this oxygen through my blood. This is good. This is good. And this will calm you down. So it's a very, very, very simple way to raise your vibration. So just 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Actually, I want you to just try this just for a moment. So just feel it. So breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, out 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathing in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breathing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, you can keep going with that. And my body right now has completely relaxed. And the reason that my body has completely relaxed after about 4 breaths in and out, it's because my brain has already been trained for this style of breathing. So my brain immediately is going, oh, we're doing this now. And it calms me down immediately. It's a really good thing to do. Like, for instance, if you're a public speaker or you've got a very important meeting or you're feeling a bit nervous, this is a really good technique to increase your vibration, get yourself away from fear. The next suggestion that I would give you is intent in your why. Now, everything we do, we have typically a reason for doing. We have an intent and a why. If you can get very, very clear on what your intent is, it makes everything so much easier because you're very clear and you're very focused as to what you're intending to do. This is a really good technique. I've often taught this to my corporate clients, particularly in trainings and things like that. Whenever I've been invited into a corporation to do a training to help them with good mental management, one thing that I'll often share is that it's a really good thing to keep in mind whenever you're going into a meeting. And, companies often lose sight of why they're meeting. They just get stuck in this pattern of meetings and they've forgotten why. So it is always really, really important, if you're a manager or a team leader, to really know what is your intent, why you're actually having that meeting. And when you get really, really clear on why you're having that meeting, meetings happen quicker. People don't get as bored in meetings. They're engaged because they're very, very clear as to what the meeting's agenda is. And what happens as a result is you get more unification, particularly when your intent and why is very values-based. So in other words, when you all agree that the reason that you're in that meeting is to support a very specific value, then everyone, the whole team, is on page. So it's a really good technique to raise your vibration or raise your frequency. Now, the third point, I'm not going to talk about too much because I'm going to talk at length further into today, 1 brain versus 3 brains. And that's about brain coherence, heart-brain, head-brain coherence. Now, Greg Braden does a lot of work in head-brain, heart-brain coherence. I prefer to go heart-brain, head-brain, gut-brain coherence. So bring all 3 brains on, so they're all working in a very unanimous value with very clear intent and very clear why. The next thing is your emotional state is everything. So how you feel is so key to absolutely everything. In your manual, I've actually given you some techniques as to how to anchor, how to create an anchor in your life. Now, anchoring is something that I learned in NLP practitioner training. It was a real game changer for me because it showed me how I could manage my emotions. And prior to learning NLP, my management of emotions was terrible. I used to let my state completely run itself and I would follow along. But all of a sudden, I'm being taught that I can now manage my emotions, which was a completely new concept to me. I just thought to myself, seriously, you can manage your emotions? I never thought it was possible. So in essence, it's all in your manual there, but just simply, all you need to do from a very simplistic perspective is it goes back to some of those things that I was sharing in one of the previous slides, you know, those 7 points that are counterintuitive. If you think of a time in your life when you were in the state that you want to be, let's say you want to be curious. That's a good thing if you want to learn. If you want to learn, a great way to improve your learning is to get into a state of curiosity. So once I learned this, I took this into every single training. And basically what I did is I got hugely curious about, oh, what am I going to learn? What am I going to learn? This is going to be so cool. This is going to be so cool. So I got myself into that state, and I found that the information became more exciting, that the information became more valuable, and that I used the information so that the information went into me in a way that I could extract it back out. So my retention increased, my intellectualism around it, my knowledge on the subject improved enormously. And now I've been studying NLP since 2006, and I'm still studying it. I haven't stopped studying it, even though I teach it. I haven't stopped studying it. And the thing is, that state of curiosity is everything. So it's really simple. All you have to do is just, and sometimes it pays just to close your eyes, because it gets rid of all distractions, it gets rid of current reality, and it can create a new reality. So all you need to do is remember a time that you were really curious. If that's the state that you want to create, just remember a time that you were really curious. Now, going back to what we shared yesterday, how do we get things in our brain? How do we change? And we discovered yesterday that essentially there were 5 things, including perhaps a 6th, that were our 5 or 6 senses. And so when you want to create a state, you bring about those senses. In other words, you recall a time you were incredibly curious. You allow yourself to see what you saw back then. You allow yourself to hear what you heard back then. And then what you do is you allow yourself to totally feel it, smell it, taste it. Imagine that you're there again. And so bringing in all of your senses, what happens is your body starts to shift in frequency. So you'll start feeling a little bit curious, because like attracts like. You relate to what you're experiencing, and you've experienced it before. So this is real, this is true, this is your life, this is your history. And so as you're recalling it, what you now do is you do something to remind yourself of this feeling. You know, in other words, you might steeple your fingers, or you might clap your hands, you might click, you might do something which is a physical thing that you can do to bring about that state again. So all you have to do is go back to various times in your life that the state was very much the same. So you just keep going back to, let's say, 3 times, 4 times, because as we learned yesterday, the brain learns in packs of 3. So what we can then do is remember a time that we were feeling curious, do it again, another time that we were feeling curious, do it again, another time that we were feeling curious, and then do something each time, you know, keep steepling or keep doing that same position. That is technically known as anchoring in NLP. So that's another way that you can raise your vibration. Just go through your library of events, experiences, and ask yourself, what experience do I want to feel again? and recall it. So the next thing to consider is knowledge versus rituals. These days, there is so much knowledge. You know, this too is knowledge. But the real value is when you ritualize it, you know, when you basically put it into practice that you're doing on a regular basis. So there are so many people that go, yeah, Rick, I know all this. I know all this. Well, one of my early mentors used to quote an old Chinese proverb, and that was, to know and not yet to do is not yet to know. So in other words, we can know many things, but do we truly know them? The only thing we truly know is what we do. So when you ritualize things that you know that work, things that you know raise your vibration, get you in a much better space every single day. And we know we all have down days. We all have really high and happy days too. The thing is that our rituals ensure that we have more high and happy days than we have down days. So the next thing is fear versus courage. Now, in my mind, if you're scared of something, it actually is a signal to you. It really is. If you're scared of something, it's a signal that says, you haven't mastered this. You have to be courageous in this moment. You know, it's a little bit like when you're scared, you must do something courageous. Because if you keep being scared in life, there will be so many things you won't experience, won't do. Now, depending on what you believe, and I'm just going to go through one vein, one particular way of going without being disrespectful to anyone's religion or faith or spirituality. So I'm just going to go down one path. And that path is that I believe that we are here to learn courage. I believe we are here to move beyond fear, beyond doubt, beyond uncertainty. I believe we are here to learn from our lessons and to stop events from happening and reoccurring that are terrible again and again and again in our lives. So the way that we're going to get out of those things is to get into courage, you know, to get courageous, to do a thing that you wouldn't normally do. Now, I was talking earlier about how was I going to start my book, Raw Courage. Now, if you haven't read that book, this isn't going to be a spoiler, but I started that book off when I was 7 years old. I didn't start writing it when I was 7, but I started a story when I was 7. And I was given a bike for Christmas. But I was told that I could only ride that bike on the footpath. I couldn't take it on the road. So I was confined to the block that I lived in. I couldn't go across the road and I couldn't go anywhere else other than the pavement, and I had to ride on the pavement. So I went around and around and around and around this block, you know, again and again and again. And my father was outside of my house with his arms folded, you know, watching me as I went past each time to make sure that I didn't go on the road. Now, I realized that I was trapped. I realized that I was locked into a pattern, and this was going to be my life. I was going to be stuck going around and round in circles. I could not go out and adventure. I could not experience the world. And when I really got this, I had a courageous moment. Yes, I defied my father, but I jumped the gutter. I went on the road. And from that day on, I was free. From that day on, I could go wherever I could. It wasn't my fear. It was my father's fear. And once I recognized that, I just jumped the gutter and I was on the road. So what we have to do is courage, just like any muscle. It is a muscle. It's something that when we keep exercising courage, we will find that we get more and more courageous. The final one, clean up your past. That is something that I would believe would be the biggest thing to improving your vibration. Clean up your past. In other words, get beyond the anger events, get beyond the sadness, get beyond the blame, the shame, the guilt, and even the pride. Get beyond these things to a point that you are no longer governed by your past. And many of us are. Many of us have been governed by our past for many, many years. And so that little technique that I spoke of earlier, timeline, is, I think, in the world, from all of the modalities I've seen, and I have studied many, and there are many awesome modalities out there, but cleaning up your past is an amazing modality using timeline. So if you could basically go back to your past and keep clearing them, and going back to that earlier slide, learn from your past. And when you learn from your past, what you do is you create a polarity in your brain. So instead of it being sad, instead of it being angry, when you learn from something like anger or sadness, it no longer has anger or sadness attached to it, because you have polarized, you have reframed, you have flipped your mind to see it from a completely different perspective. So the higher the number, the more important the task. So these are 7 keys to increasing your vibration. So let me change gears. We're going to have a little bit of a chat time. So what I'm going to do is, this is an opportunity for you to connect up with people here. You don't have to, but if you're okay, I'm going to create a whole load of breakout rooms. And it's up to you. I'm going to put you in kind of groups of maybe 3 or 4. I want you to talk about what you learned just already this morning. What was your biggest take from today? And today has just started. Of course, we haven't done too much today, but what I'm going to do is, let me see, I'll create about, let's see, that many rooms. And we'll just go for about 7 minutes. So it's not going to be long, but this is a great opportunity to meet some new people too. One thing I'm very fortunate at being and attracting, I attract really nice people. So I guarantee, even though you haven't met some of these people here, I guarantee you they will be really nice people. So you get to meet someone nice and you get to have a little chat. So let's open up the rooms. And so all you need to do is just jump in the room, have a chat with some people. And wait a minute, let me do some adjusting, because I can see that some people have been left to be in too small a room. So I'm just moving some of you about. Okay, cool. I think we've got there. So feel free, jump into the room and have a bit of a chat. So, okay, I'll let it keep recording. So if you feel that you don't want to chat with someone in the room, that's okay. I'm still here. You can chat with me if you like. But you'll have to unmute if you want to chat. How are you, Tony? Are you muted, buddy?
I'm well, thanks, Rick. I was in the meetup room, and then I thought, oh, I must have been a bit too quick, so I jumped out of that room. But anyway, it's good.
Oh, I've got to move someone into another room because they're on their own. Here we go. Hopefully they've moved. It's always a bit of a challenge having so many people in so many rooms. Cool.
Okay, yes, I know that the past, I hold a lot of the past. Definitely the fear factor of a lot of things still hold. A lot of stuff that's just not moving and hasn't moved for a long, long time that, it needs to be moved. So yeah, there's definitely not enough courage there for sure. If you
can, rather than dealing with the things that you're a little bit nervous about, dealing with, because they may be big issues.
Yeah.
Now, remember, of course, this is a public space, so, you don't have to share anything personal. So what you can do is get yourself into a state of courage first. And when you get yourself into a state of courage, it means that you'll do something maybe small that scares you a little bit, but it doesn't scare you a whole lot. And do that, go through it and do that. Now, usually what happens is when you do something that's a bit scary, you tend to get a gush. It starts to release all sorts of hormones in your body that can get you in a really good state. So you can say, wow, I did that. That was awesome. So you get to that point of achievement. And then what happens is then do something else that's scary and maybe build up to doing the big thing, whatever it is that you want to do ultimately, but have it like going back to your why and intent, have an intent that what you're going to do is you're going to get there. You're going to make that decision. You're ultimately going to deal with it. But do a lot of smaller things in the lead up to it. And if you can actually even create a timeline for this, so put a deadline to it, say by this time, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
Now what will happen is your brain will already start preparing itself. It will already start building strategies to make it happen, because you have to understand, particularly most of our programs are in the unconscious. So in the unconscious, essentially, it's basically everything that governs us, all our breathing, all our, moving our blood, the killing of cells, the rebuilding of cells, everything is governed through the unconscious, including many of our patterns and behaviors. So the unconscious's job, and the thing that we have to understand is the unconscious's job is to keep us alive. It wants to keep breathing us, moving our blood, moving our energy through our body. It wants us to keep alive. So when you make a commitment that you're actually going to do something, your unconscious will already start putting things into your thoughts and perhaps even adjusting your behaviors, because it wants to make sure that when you do that thing that you don't die. And that's what fear often is. It's a feeling, if we take it to the extreme, it's a feeling like we're going to die. So, for example, let's say that the fear is we don't want to be social. We're scared of being social. We're scared of putting ourselves out there. So our brain is thinking that if we put ourselves out there, we're going to die. Well, we're not. We're just maybe going to not be as articulate, or we're not going to look as good or sound as good, or whatever that fear is within us. But we're not going to die. But the way that our fear stops us from doing things, it inflates things. It makes it appear a lot worse than it actually will be or is. And so as a result of that, it's a really key mechanism to stop us from doing all sorts of things. But it's usually overinflated. So come to really understand fear. Something that I wrote in Raw Courage was, make fear your friend. Don't make it your enemy. Make it your friend. Make it, just simply say, hey, just be careful here. That's really what it's saying. Just be careful here. It's not saying, don't do it, you're going to die, but that's how your brain will interpret it. And your heart rate, like when our heart rate starts increasing, it gets us to a point where we literally think that something bad is going to happen. But mind you, when you're doing exciting things, your heart rate is fast too, or can be fast too. So it's only the filters in between that, which is our decision process. What are we deciding that heart rate is? Does that make some sense?
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, it sure does. Yeah.
Yeah, and just keep working on it. Just keep working on it. That's certainly what I would do. Now, people are going to start coming out of the breakout room, so we've probably got about another 15 seconds to go. How did you enjoy yesterday?
Oh, fantastic. It was really, really good. Yeah.
Was it helpful? Oh, you're muted, Tony.
Yeah, no, yesterday was really good. Yeah, I got a lot of little nuggets. I wrote pages of notes. So, yeah, it was really, really good.
Awesome. You know what I think? I sometimes, in putting this material together, I got to a point where I used to think, oh my God, this is so boring. This is so boring.
No,
And
it's not.
I began to realize that I've taught it so many times that I think it's boring, but it's because I've done it for so many years. But
every time you do it, it's like there's always something trigger.
Yeah.
I, pick up on. So yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Fantastic.
Not boring at all.
Awesome, Tony.
Thank you.
Cool. So does anyone have any questions? You went into a breakout room, you met some lovely people, no doubt. So does anyone have any questions before we move on to the next piece? Looks like no questions. Okay, cool. Let's keep diving in. So what I'm going to do now is let's go back to our slides and let's move to the next bit. So how to improve your perspective. So this is something that we teach in our master's program. And I remember one particular student of ours that said, oh my God, once I learned this, I use this with every problem, and all problems just dissolve really quickly, really easily. And, that really excited me when I heard that. And I thought, that's fantastic that you got that, because that's the actual intent of this. How to improve your perspective, solve your problems with this one powerful philosophy. So I'm going to share a particular testimonial. Now, I don't know whether I'm a genius, but this particular gentleman, Vladimir Platil is his name. He gave me this testimonial. He said, Rick is a genius in the mind space. He helped me to double my income. So basically, he changed his perspective. And that's literally how he doubled his income. So from the perspective of him, he didn't realize the environment that he was in. He didn't realize that his income was uncapped. He didn't realize that he could actually double his income. He had some ideas about himself, and we did some belief work. We did some values work. Now, once we'd finished, I said to him, how are you feeling now after our session? And what are you thinking? And he said, I am so confused. And I said, why is that? He said, I don't know what is up, what is down. I don't even know my name right now. He said, you have thrown so many ideas into my brain that I can just feel my brain going crazy right now. And I said, awesome. I said, the thing is, what I've done is I have got you to a point where you have really consciously looked at many of your beliefs, concepts, and ideas about how the world works, and it hasn't been serving you. So now you can, because the brain hates confusion, I said, your brain is going to want to get some clarity out of this. Your brain is going to want to be able to, grab another rung. And the pieces that we're put in there essentially can only do you good. So I remember him coming back for his second session, and he came back, and we were working in an office that had glass. So I saw him coming towards the office where we were going to do some work together. And I saw him, and the moment he saw me, he pointed at me like I was in trouble. And the look on his face kind of looked like I was in trouble. So he came in the door and he said, what did you do last session? And I said, why is that? And he said, I'm on track to doubling my income. And I said, well, that's cool. And he said, but how did you do that? And I said, well, the question you should be asking is, how did you do that? Because you want to do that again, perhaps. So, as it turned out, he just kept going with it, and it doubled his income. Now, I haven't seen Vlad in many, many years, so I don't know exactly what he's done with himself these days. But the thing was changing perspective. So let me share a little bit about what's called perceptual positions. So perceptual positions, and this is the technical detail, is taking an alternate position outside of the position that you typically hold. For instance, in a conflict, you may take the position of the other person sitting inside their mind and body to change your view of them or the situation, or take the position of a fly on the wall and notice what would be different from over there. So basically what you're doing is you're kind of looking from someone else's perspective, not yours, but someone else's perspective. So for example, yesterday we shared the road to mastery, and the question that I would like you to focus this in on is, what do you need to decide in the context of you moving forward? What do you need to decide? You know, and when are you going to make that decision? So what do you need to decide, and when are you going to make that decision? Now, typically, if people don't make decisions, of course, their lives get very static. If people don't make decisions, what they're also going to do is they're going to build up fear. If people don't make decisions, they will start to train their brain that it is okay to do nothing. And therefore, that sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes, it's not a healthy perspective. So what I want you to think about is some of the work that we did yesterday in really working out, what was that decision that you have to make? I want you to put attention to that decision, but using this process. So let me explain the process. So to understand it a little bit, let's say we have person number one, who is a man, and they're a couple in a relationship. So they're not listening. And in fact, they're doing probably the worst symbol you can ever do to your partner. Now, person number two is a woman who is frustrated. So what we have is we have another person unattached, call it the fly on the wall. So basically what we have is we have a pattern. We get frustration. We get don't listen. We then get frustrated. We then get don't listen. So this is a pattern. Now, if this pattern perpetuates in a couple's relationship, I would suggest that this couple are either never, ever going to mesh together, you know, as a team, as a couple, or they're going to look for the first excuse to break it off, you know. And by the way, people do this very unconsciously. You know, they see someone prettier, or they see someone more attractive, or they start making up stories about the other person. And those stories give them reason to get out of the relationship. So this is a pattern that's quite destructive, and it's certainly not going to help. So in order for us not to make a decision, we will typically have a pattern like this. And the pattern like this, like, let me give you, and by the way, this is to all the coaches and therapists out there. So something that I see as a life coach trainer, you know, of course, I've been teaching life coaches for many years, NLP practitioners, and something that I often see is I see a lot of clever people. And of course, we're teaching them all these tools, all these techniques to make their lives easier, to be able to help other people. And that's awesome. And then we get to the end of the training and I say, awesome, go out there, help some people, you know, get some clients, help more people. That's why I've given you all these tools. Help yourself, help your family, help more people. Now, the problem that happens is they get themselves into a pattern. And the pattern is that they've been, you know, listening, learning, listening, learning, listening, learning, listening, learning. And it's a great pattern. It's fantastic to build your awareness. But we've got to, at some point, either keep that pattern going, but maybe introduce another thing. And that is do. Listen, learn, do. Listen, learn, do. And just add that into the pattern. Now, when they add that into the pattern, what's going to happen is instead of just being a student, they now become a practitioner. Because what they're actually doing is the practicing the tools that they have learned. So one thing that we sometimes have to do to initiate that new perspective or that new pattern is we've got to imagine the situation through someone else's eyes, be it a fly or be it something a little bit wiser, or maybe flies are very wise, I don't know. So the thing is that basically, if we were able to, get someone's perspective who actually knows the answer to your problem and be able to take the perspective of a sage or someone who knows how to solve your problem. So in other words, the thing that you've firstly got to do perspectives really well is you've got to get out of your own state. You've got to get out of your own mind, and you've got to imagine, and that's typically the only way you can do it, is actually imagine what someone else would say, think, or advise. So you just imagine yourself going into the mind of that person, trying to fully understand who they are, trying to tap into their wisdom, into their knowledge, and you've got to see yourself. So in other words, in NLP, we call this a disassociation pattern. So in other words, we are rising up above ourselves. So we're not seeing the experience through our own eyes anymore. We actually are seeing ourselves through someone else's eyes. So that's a perspective. It's a different perspective. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'm going to get you to work in a group of 3 or more to solve your problem. Now, your problem, typically, I want you to think about your problem as being the problem before the decision. So in other words, it's the thing that's stopping you from making a decision because there's a problem there. Maybe you're confused about something. Maybe you're not certain about something. Maybe you can't bring yourself to do that next thing, whatever that next thing might be. So the great thing about working in a group of 3 is what you could do is you could say to the person in a very simple way, don't let yourself get into story about this. Simply say, my problem is I have to make a decision. And the decision, let's say, is I'm considering changing my job, but I just can't bring myself to do it. So then let another person or the other people be the other perspectives. Let the other people be the other perspectives. So one of you will say, yes, I've got a problem and I'd really like to get it solved, and state your problem within a minute. So take no longer than a minute. If you're taking longer than a minute, you are now into story. Let me tell you what story sounds like. So the example before is the problem could be, I want to make a decision about taking this new job. Let's say that's the problem. And so if you now continue, it starts sounding like a story, because I don't know whether I'm smart enough for this new role, or I think if I get this role, what happens if I miss out on another role? Or what is the company going to say? Or I'm halfway through a project. What are my team members going to say when I leave the project halfway through? That's all story. So don't get into story. So within 30 seconds to a minute, state your problem, and then let everyone, and maybe yourself, go into another perspective. So I want you to all imagine that you are impeccably wise, incredibly wise. And I want you to be able to suggest what this person could think, feel, or do as a result. So that is your opportunity for a breakthrough. So let's shave off another layer. Let's shave off a layer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to our breakout rooms. So this time, I'll leave you in the same groups, except I do have to move somebody. Let's see, to room 5, I think. Okay. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's got, yep, you do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open all rooms. I'm going to call this a 15-minute exercise. So what I'm going to get you to do in 15 minutes, I want you to come out with a solution. So I'm going to open all rooms. So all the rooms are open. So feel free to just dive into a room. And if I see any of you that are in a room on your own, I'll move you. There we go. Okay, doing a lot of room shuffling here. Okay, so we've got enough people in that room, got enough people in that room, one person in that room. Let's put you in room 4. So there we go. Okay, looks like everyone's sorted. Okay, for those of you who are still here, if you want to have a chat, feel free to unmute and we can chat while everyone's in the exercise. So who have we got? We've got Wendy, we've got Danielle, and we've got Mike. Do any of you want to unmute? Or you're making a cup of tea? Okay, so let me just check to see how Facebook's going. So, okay, it looks like that is still going. Awesome. So it's on delay at the moment. So now, for those of you who are on Facebook right now, of course, what we're doing here is we're doing breakthrough. And essentially the whole point of breakthrough is to help people to get beyond where they currently are. So breakthrough is an event that we were running for many, many years. We haven't run a breakthrough for 7 years. And we felt that given all of the things that are going on in the world at the moment, we felt that it was probably a good idea to run another breakthrough. And so breakthrough is about being more resourceful, allowing yourself to have the sort of thinking or insights to be able to be more helpful to yourself and others in the world. So our heart, our mind, and everything we care about mostly is very much about empowering as many people as we possibly can to be able to help others in their world. So typically what we do is we teach life coaches, we teach speakers, we teach trainers, and we teach these people so that they can go out and help other people around in their world. So typically where we come from is we teach many modalities, but the prime modality that we tend to teach is neuro-linguistic programming and many of the insights around NLP. We also teach many life coaching tools and techniques, and hence we get a lot of life coaches or people who want to be life coaches or people who want to be speakers or people who want to be leaders out there in the world. That's why we do what we do. And we've been doing that since 2002. And it's now been 21 years of doing this. And I felt that this particular breakthrough, I wanted to share many of the things that I've learned from coaching and training. We have a life coach and NLP practitioner training that's running. We've got another one starting soon. We've got our masters group who are about quarter way through their training. We're about to start speaker training to teach people how to actually go out there and make a difference in the world. And that's very much been our focus for many, many years. One thing that you might know throughout your life is that there are many people around you that you know at some level are unresourceful. Either they get angry too often, or they get sad, or they retreat, or they attack. And these at the end of the day are not bad people. These are just really people who actually haven't been taught any other way. And if you got into Breakthrough yesterday, where we spoke at length about how our brain actually works and how we become the very people that we are today. And what you would come to know is that much of who we are actually really isn't us. Much of it was our parents or other people that we experienced in our lives, and these became our programs. These became the things that we decided that we were or are. And so much of what we've been doing is helping people to get rid of a lot of those programs that really don't serve them. And the purpose and the intent of that is so that they can do better in their world. So that's essentially, what we've been doing. I hope that if you're watching this, that, this content is making sense to you and helping you to start, get some insights, or maybe you're familiar with it already, but perhaps it's a reminder to you to use it again and use it in a way that can certainly help you. Because moving forward, one of the things that I truly believe is that the world's going to need more leaders. I often think to myself, where are the Gandhis of this world? Where are the Nelson Mandelas? Where are the Mother Teresas? Where are those inspirational people? And I know there's many inspirational people in the world. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But the thing is that, these inspirational people need a bigger platform. They need a bigger voice. They need to be out there in mainstream so that people really get and understand their philosophies so that they can learn from them. And if they learn from them, then they could certainly be doing things in a much better or bigger way. So one of the things that we've been doing all these years is, of course, COVID came along and it kind of changed the game big time certainly in our industry. And we were actually doing a lot of courses live in rooms prior to COVID. I had some intuition that suggested to stop doing that. And I listened to my intuition, and we stopped doing that, and we re-geared our entire business. In fact, we were going to go to London, and we were going to base ourselves out of London for a while. And so we were gearing up to be able to transport our entire business. And as it turned out, COVID hit and we were ready for it. So what we did is we brought 100% of our trainings online. So we moved everything, absolutely everything online. But what it has actually done is it's been fantastic for us in that we've been able to reach more people and certainly help more people. And we had many of our students who asked us, how do you sell online courses? How do you do all that? So we created another program called Income Incubator to teach people how to do that. Now, as a result of that, now many people can access information, in a cheaper way, in an easier way. I mean, here at Breakthrough, no one had to fly here. No one had to get accommodation. No one had to even get out of their homes. So as terrible as COVID may have been, it also brought some good things. It created certainly this as an opportunity, and it was fantastic. It just made such a big difference. It's so unfortunate that there were many people some people who died, many people who died. And it was very unfortunate too that many people were afflicted. Something we certainly noticed was anxiety increased dramatically because people weren't socializing, people weren't getting out of their homes in lockdowns, of course. And as a result of that, there was a huge amount of uncertainty. The sands were shifting. And that created a massive amount of anxiety. The amount of people that we have helped with anxiety, with depression, also the loss of social skills as well. It was incredible how quickly some people lost their social skills and their social graces as well. And so from the perspective of Breakthrough, many of the people we've taught, all got very, very busy, and many people created all sorts of group programs to help more people because they couldn't just keep up with demand of one-on-one. And many people were doing things like this, courses, running things like Breakthrough. So I hope that if you've, been part of this, that what we're sharing here resonates with you and helps you. And of course, I'll put the link in here too, so you can access the day before this, and you can see what led up to this particular point if you're curious or you're interested in moving your life forward. So our people have got about another 4 minutes in the chat. And of course, I'm just sitting here waiting and chatting with you. So here's a way, by the way, if you want to reach out to us at any particular point and you want to talk about anything that you want to resolve, or you just want to have a chat about something in particular, the best way to reach us is that on our website, there is a solutions page, and it's basically lifebeyondlimits.com.au/solutions, plural. So that's a great place where you can actually access my diary. Quite often during my week, I'm working with people and offering advice, helping them, putting ideas together for them to help them. And that's a good place to start. Or there's, of course, our contact page, and, one of the team will contact you or even ask me to contact you. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with us. So what else can I share with you while everyone's in the break? We spoke about frequency. That's what I can share with you. We spoke about frequency quite a bit. I know some people think about the word frequency or even less vibration and think that that's a very woo-woo concept, or, it's very out there. It's not anymore. It's one of those concepts that has got a huge amount of base in science. And there have been many, many people who have been researching vibration and frequency. And when I talk about frequency, you, me, right now, we have a frequency. And this frequency, you can hear it in people's tonality, essentially what their frequency is. Like, for example, if I started talking like this, you know exactly my frequency is probably very low. If I start talking like this, well, sorry, I'm acting, but then that's a very low frequency. And of course, you can hear it, you can see it when people are, vibrating at a very, very low frequency. And as a result of that, typically what happens is we lose resources, and we actually get to a point where we don't, or we're not able to function properly in our world. Anyway, it's been nice chatting with you, and we're about to get everyone back, and hopefully you stay for the rest of it, and particularly the meditation, which I'm about to go into, I think. So let's see, where are we up to? I just need to do a little bit of a check. Yep, we're up to the next piece. Cool. Hello, hello. We're all coming back now. How are you, Michael?
Good, thanks, Rick. I just had three ladies giving me perceptual positions.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's awesome. But the most important question, did you change perspective?
I did.
Awesome.
I got some thoughts there. I mean, some of the messages I've heard before, but I heard some other pieces there that helped me make it a bit more coherent. So I'm very happy. The key was a strategy, which I already knew, but a decision, courage, and also to perhaps take a break. This concern that I have to keep on, that there has to be perfect continuity, is not necessarily true. So it's all of them together. Nice, beautiful. Thank you.
Awesome. Very, very cool. So is there anyone that would like to share anything that they got as they were working with their groups? Is there anything that anyone would like to share? Yes, Andre.
I was very fortunate. I worked with Kelly, Lala, and Dane. And I must say, I had three very wise people who asked me very wise questions about the problem I had. And if you notice, the problem I had.
Yes, it's very past tense, isn't it?
And it has changed my perception of what the problem is. And the problem was with me. It wasn't the problem wasn't the problem. It was with me, not letting go.
Right.
And some really wonderful suggestions were made. And I do want to thank the three of you for the very wise questions that you put through, because it has opened up my my perspective of what I should do. And it's put aside, it's given me more time, more room, less headaches. Great. Absolutely
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And that only took you, what, about 12 minutes or so?
Oh, that is purgatory.
Fantastic. Can we give you a huge round of applause? Good job. Awesome. And to your wise cohorts.
Oh, yes, they were fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. And, you know, when you think about it, it really shows and highlights the benefit of other minds coming to your problems. You know, besides changing perspective, having other people's perspective coming to your issues. And hence, that's why I'm a massive fan of coaching, because you can often be coached out of your problems if you've got someone else's perspective. So good job. Awesome. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to start talking a little bit about the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain, and how to bring these all in line. So what I'm going to be doing is in this, I'm going to be also playing a bit of music underneath this. So what I'm just going to do is, because we've got a Facebook Live, I normally would have gotten a whole bunch of things ready and together to get all this happening. But of course, I was chatting with the Facebook people. So I'm going to play an audio, and this particular audio is at a frequency of 432. So it's a Hertz rating at 432. So it's starting to get you ultimately where you need to get to. So that's going to be playing underneath as I take you through a particular process. Now, as I take you through this process, first I'm going to give you some information so you understand what we're doing. Then I'm going to take you through a process, and it would be a good idea to either have, maybe your breakthrough notes area, and right at the back of it, there's a ton of area that you can write lots of notes, or have a notepad, because you're going to come out of this process and I'm going to give you a little bit of time to actually write down anything that you got as you actually go through this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share screen, and I'm also going to share sound. So this is going to be the audio, but what I really want is I want to go back to our slides. So can everyone see the breakthrough time? Let's shave off a layer slide. Can everyone see that? Yep. Okay, cool. Awesome. So how to break through beyond your limits by aligning your head, your heart, and your gut brain. So before we go there, just let's get a little bit of a sense of these three brains. And our primitive man has come back. And the first brain that most of us focus on is, of course, the head brain, the brain that sits in our skull. There is, of course, science has proven that there are also neurons within our heart. They tend to be more at the top of the heart rather than at the bottom, but there are lots of neurons in our heart. There is also neurons, or many, many neurons in our gut as well. So our gut, heart, and our head brain are technically all brains. They have the constitution that constitutes a brain. They all can work independently of themselves. And the biggest challenge we have is how to get them working all together. So when we think of these brains, the head brain, the heart brain, and the gut brain, the head brain has 100 billion neurons. So it's got a huge amount of neurons, mass amount of neurons. If you've ever wondered how you can get confused, there's your answer. The reason that we can get very, very confused, get very distracted, and get very off path is because there are so many neurons with so much data. We are born, by the way, with those neurons. We don't build those neurons as we grow. But what we do is it's just like buying a brand new computer. You've got all that capacity, and then what you do is you put data into that computer. So it means those neurons now have information, just like bytes in a computer now hold information. Our heart brain has 40,000 neurons, much, much less. But our gut brain has more. It has 100 million neurons. Now, if you wonder, how do they know this? Can you believe that they have actually sliced open a heart and counted every single neuron? That's how they know there's 40,000. Well, it's a round figure. It jumps up and down from that number, but that's just as a guide. So basically, what happens with our heart brain, head brain, most people would think that many of the signals from our nervous system actually go down to our heart and down to our gut. That's not true. 80% of the signals and information go actually from our heart up to our head brain. And so essentially what our head brain is doing is it's getting lots of messages from our heart saying things like, oh, I don't feel so good. Oh, I'm not doing what I want to do. Or it's going, I feel fantastic. I feel amazing. And it's sending signals up to the brain. The brain now calls it names, gives it detail, gives it information, says, oh, this is like that time, or this is like, that time. And as a result of that, what essentially happens is we start to now build evidence as to why we're feeling what we're feeling, and therefore we can perpetuate that thought and that feeling pattern. This is how people can go up in a spiral to joy. This is also how people can go down in a spiral. So what we need to understand is that this is how it gets complicated, because our head brain says, hey, let's start a business. And then our heart brain says, I love the idea. That would be fantastic. That's exactly what I want to do. And the gut brain says nothing. And so nothing happens. So in other words, what we really have to have is we've got to have our head brain working with our heart brain, working with our gut brain in unison. So the heart is, as I said yesterday, it is the compass. It is really the guide. If we listen to our heart more and our head less, we would be much, much happier in life. And we'd be probably exactly where we want to be. So the thing is that the gut brain, in response time, and this is a purposeful metaphor, it has to chew things over. So it takes longer for your gut to be on board than it does your heart or your head brain. Your head brain switches very fast. Your heart brain takes a little bit longer, but it's governed by your value system. All your values are in your heart, in fact. So that's those three brains. And there is a way to actually talk to them. And that's what I'd really like to do in this next process. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to play the music, and then I'm just going to talk you through this. So as I talk you through this, I want you to think of perhaps a thing that you want to break through, a thing that you really want to make happen in your life. You know, a decision that you haven't yet made that you could make that would make a big, big difference in your life. So don't get logical with it. Don't go straight up to your head brain and go, oh, but I want to make this decision, but it requires money. Do I have enough of it? You know, don't start thinking like that. Don't equally start thinking, oh, I want to do this thing, but do I have time to do that? Or I'm going to have to quit my job to do that. Don't get complex with this. So start off with essentially just letting yourself go. That's going to be the first thing to do. Just think of what you want. Think of the thing in your life that you really want, and then just let yourself go. And I'm going to guide you right through this. So I'm just going to stop share for a moment because I've just got to get the music playing. So I'm going to get the music playing. And I'm just going to make sure the volume, the volume's good, because I just want it nice and light. And now I'm going to go back to our slides. You should now hear music. Can everyone hear music? Okay, awesome. So the music kind of just helps the voice a bit, and it kind of puts a frequency. You might listen to this frequency, and you might feel to relax. So the frequency itself is, as I say, at 432. 432, by the way, is a really good healing frequency. It's a great frequency to be using in your audios if you want people to heal. So the thing that I'm going to do is I want you to just give me a thumbs up if you can hear my voice very clear. Yeah, awesome. And you can still hear the music underneath just very slightly. Awesome. Thank you for the thumbs up, folks. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to take you on a bit of a guided meditation. So that's going to be the purpose of this. So let's start by gently closing your eyes to stop all of your brain's filters from being limited by all they can see, hear, feel, taste, smell, and know. Just closing your eyes and just letting yourself go. That's right. And finding yourself in a quiet and still space, allowing time to do good, allowing yourself to find good and do good as you relax completely. Good. Good, good. You're doing really, really well. In a moment, not now, you are going to find yourself in a place, a special place. And as you find yourself ascending to a much higher vibration, a much higher frequency, moving higher up into the heart place, the place where love truly lives. So you're going up into a higher place, a heart place, a place where love truly lives. And in this higher place, above distraction, way above any negative emotions or limiting decisions, you find yourself starting to think that anything is possible in this space. And so you find yourself way above the earth, way, way, way above the earth. And you can see the curvature of the earth below you now as you rise up higher and higher. And you find that you move so easily, so effortlessly. And in this higher place, above distraction, way above any negative emotions or limiting decisions, you find yourself starting to think from your heart. In this space, you come to realize that your heart is the center of your universe. That's right, the very center of your universe. You know that your head brain is a great place to go when you have decided what is right for you. It's a good place to get your strategies. But your heart is the center of your universe. It's your happy place. It's your center. You know that your gut brain is a great place to go when it's time to take action. It's a good place to get your energy from. But your heart is the center of your universe. It's your happy place. It's your center. So it's now time that you focused on your heart, just a little more. So now I would like you, if you're willing, to focus on your heart, bringing all your attention, 100% of your attention to your heart. Your center, your universe, as you feel your frequency is increasing to 300 Hertz. Slowly climbing your frequency. You can feel the gentleness of your energy as it's slowly climbing to 350 Hertz. Slowly growing in frequency now to 380 Hertz. Rising to 390 Hertz. You're feeling ever more peaceful as you're now at 400 Hertz. Now the frequency of love is 500 Hertz. As you get closer now, it feels like you're experiencing the feeling of love as you focus on your heart. 100% of your attention on your heart. That's right. You're doing really well. Very good. In a moment, not now, you are going to find yourself in that special place. A special place as you find yourself ascending to a much higher vibration, a much higher frequency, moving higher up into the heart place, the place where love truly lives. Now, in a moment, not now, as you are in the heart place, you are going to ask your heart a question. And you know that the heart does not lie. It only tells you the truth. It only knows the truth. It is, after all, your heart. The question that you are going to ask is, what do I truly wish to do? What do I truly wish to be? What do I truly wish to do? What do I truly wish to be? Who do I truly wish to become for me? For no one else but for me. Who do you truly wish to become for you? And your heart will give you an answer. In a moment, not now, your heart is going to answer you, or it may have already answered. So let us be still for a moment to listen. What do I truly wish to do? What do I truly wish to be? Who do I truly wish to become for me? For no one else but me. Who do you truly wish to become for you? Who do I truly wish to become for me? For no one else but for me. Perhaps it's what I was always meant to be. Maybe it's why I was born. What would make you truly happy? What will make you truly joyful, at peace, and at one with your world and those around you? Forget the how and focus only on the why. Why do you want this? Why do you wish to follow your heart? When the why is big enough, the how will show up. So forget the how, just focus on what you want and why. Oh, and that's a nice thought. What would make you truly happy? What will make you truly joyful, at peace, and at one with your world and those around you? Forget the how, focus only on the why. Why do you want this? Why do you wish to follow your heart? When the why is big enough, the how will show up. So forget the how, just focus on what you want and why. Now, as you find what your heart truly wishes for you, now focus on your head brain and say, head brain, I love and respect your wisdom, your knowledge and understanding. And we would like you to work out a strategy, a way we can live our grandest dreams. You can work it out whenever the pieces unfold. You don't have to work it out the whole thing, because sometimes you need more pieces to come from the universe to make everything much easier. So just trust that all is fine and we will find our path. We will find our way. So head brain, you can work out how we can serve our heart, because you're clever, you're wise. And when you recognize that you are equally infinite, you will come to realize that you can do anything. You can breathe easy, head brain, because we will work this out together. And now let us include our gut brain. Now focusing your attention at the gut brain. Please, gut brain, please know that we love your ability to digest ideas. And even though it may take you a while, we trust your process and processing. Relax and rest assured, gut brain, that you will be fine when we all follow our heart. You will always have all you need. You will always have enough food and drink to keep us all in the best and most perfect state. We love you and all you do for us. We are a team, and we are a family, and we will be good. Together we will follow the signs of our new decision, knowing that we are divinely guided and supported by the universe. Because when we are all allowed to be in our own frequency, we will be one, at peace and in harmony. Good job. Now, should you have found your heart, should you have found the message that your heart wanted to share with you, be sure that when we come back, just perhaps to write it down. Or any wisdoms that you were given, be sure to write them down. So in a moment, not now, we're going to come back to the room. Knowing that you have initiated this conversation with your heart means you can initiate it again. And you can speak again and again and again to your heart. And maybe you shall speak more to your heart. And maybe you shall follow your heart more. Maybe too, you may even trust your heart. But understand your heart is your compass. Your heart is your north, your true north. Your head will help you with strategies, and your gut will make sure that the body is functioning perfectly in order to do what it is that you must do. And in a moment, not now, you'll come back to the room. So 5, preserving what you have given yourself, preserving what you have come to understand, and for allowing yourself to know the purpose, the reason you do what you do and why you do it for. And 3, starting to realize that you are free. You are free to do whatever you choose, your own will. That nobody puts conditions on you, nobody but you. And all the conditions that you have put upon yourself are all released. You can do whatever you will, whatever you must, on listening to your heart. And 2, you begin to find that things can get too easy. Things can get very easy. And sometimes you will create dramas just to make it more interesting, because things can be too easy. So understand that when you create drama, you can stop yourself. And again, you can listen to your heart. And 1, allowing yourself to be at one with yourself, with your head, your heart, and your gut. 1 with your communities, 1 with your families, and 1 with yourself. And coming all the way back up, back to the room. Good job. Okay, music is off. So do feel free to write down anything that you may have been given, and feel free to write that down on a pad. Now, while some people are writing, there might be some others who wish to share. Is there anyone that wants to share what came up for them? Yes, Phil. I saw a big smile on your face.
It was very enlightening. And I got several things out of it. 1, that I'm a brave thinker, that I'm a dream builder, and that I'm a transformational coach. That was the heart, the real solid stuff. And in that, then learning that the heart is not only the heart and the originator of the desire, but also my intuition, my voice of truth that shows me where and how we're going to get there. And so it was very enlightening for me.
That is fantastic. Can we give Phil a huge round of applause? That was awesome. Good job. Excellent. Because, what you got there is that your heart is your truth. It is your intuition, and it will guide you into where you need to go. How many times, and I'm asking this to everybody, how many times have you sometimes denied your own intuition, and then only on reflection, sort of further into the future, you start to realize that your intuition was 100%. Has anyone experienced that? And then you think to yourself, why don't I follow my intuition more? Why don't I follow my intuition more? But that typically happens when, of course, our head brain kicks in and says, oh, don't do that because of this, or don't do that because of that, or watch out for this, or watch out for that. And it starts panicking, and of course, if we start panicking, we can't make anything happen. So thank you, Phil. That was awesome. Very, very cool. Does anyone else, is there anyone else that would like to share? Yes, Lisa.
Yeah. So I came into this breakthrough with the idea of career, I guess. And then just with that visualization, I sort of imagined myself when you said going up out of the earth and seeing the earth, then the boundaries of me just melted into sort of infinity. And then I changed my whole concept about work. So I wrote down that I saw this thing, so every day, from the very start of the day, waking up and just imagining how I want to be, flexible, strong, rested, peaceful, all of these words, and then changing the actual word of work or career. It's to no longer being considered that word. So it's not tied with anything. So it's more like a beauty and a joy and a passion and a pleasure, an adventure, and almost like a magnetic pull. So it's not like, it's got no associations with previous work or anything to do with anything. It's like something that you just know that you want to do, and it's just happening, and like all kinds of riches are just like showering down on you, and not just in a monetary sense, but in a total complete way. And it's like, it's just like happiness, and and it's like you just feel like intuitively drawn to do the things that you're meant to do. Does that make any sense?
It does. It does. Can we give you a huge round of applause? That is fantastic. Awesome. It's if I can share a little insight here, when I first heard about life coaching, I was told by a journalist who was doing a story on life coaching, and she came from doing the story. Life coaching had just started in Australia, and no one knew what it really was. And she was, as a journalist, she was doing a story on it, and she marched into my office with this big fat envelope, big white envelope, and she threw it on my desk, and she went, "I know who you are now." And I went, "Okay, who am I?" And she pointed to the envelope, and I went, "Yay, I'm an envelope." And she said, "I'm just doing a story on life coaching." And she said, "You are a natural at this. You like helping people, you like solving problems, and you should do this." And of course, I resisted enormously. My head brain kicked in. But my heart brain, once she described it all and described what it was, my heart brain, I could feel that if I opened that envelope, that I would do it. And so I didn't. I left the envelope shut. I didn't open it at all. I just knew when I opened that envelope, I'd want to do it. And I was in a relationship, a long-term relationship, for about 10 years. And, the two of us had worked out that we were going our separate ways. So we decided to go our separate ways. And I remember I bought an apartment in South Bank Boulevard, in South Bank, Victoria. And it was my new dream. I was going to overlook the city. I was going to play music again. I was going to ride again. And I sold my car, and I said, I'm only going to ride a motorbike. So I bought a motorbike. And I was in this apartment, and I was unboxing. And I just had finished setting up, back then, the video and the TV, the video player and TV. And I opened this box. At the very top of the box was that damn white envelope. And I thought, oh, bugger it, got a bit of time. So I opened up the envelope. It had a video in it. I put the video in, and I swear within about 5 minutes of watching this video, I thought, this is me. This is me. And the rest is history. But, I went in, I enrolled in my first life coaching course, and I remember I felt like I was home. All the languaging I learned, all the the techniques and the processes and everything, I felt, wow, I'm home. And I could see why my heart wanted to go there, but my head basically gave me all the excuses in the world so as not to do it. And all the years, and it was years, since I had that envelope, was years of pain, just resisting my heart. So it's so beautiful to hear you guys share what you actually got, when you open up your heart. Now, I know that some people might think that following your heart is a bit airy-fairy or a little bit soft, or, it's not strong, and all of those silly nonsense words. But I've come to realize over the years that it is so powerful when you truly, truly do follow your heart. It makes such a big difference to your life and to your world. So thank you. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So is there anyone else, a final person who would like to share what they got, or do we want to go to the next piece? Yes, Andre.
I've listened to the Three Brains a number of times because I've got that on audio. But somehow this time I got two things out of it, really two very significant things: courage and action. And it is as part of this breakthrough, this has brought me, it's given me courage to do things and action to move along, because you know where I'm going at the moment with my
Yes, I do.
Coaching thing. And this has really cemented everything for me: courage to do it and the action to move along. And that's what I got from it this time.
I remember many years ago, I went to see a clairvoyant. And the reason I went to see this clairvoyant was because I wasn't courageous and I wasn't taking action. And she gave me this one thing that was my biggest fear for going into coaching, was the income. You know, could I sustain myself, you know, on the income? And could I keep my home? Could I keep, you know, that roof over my head and all that survivalist sort of stuff? And she said one thing to me. She said, the space that you're going on, she said, you're going to help a lot of people. And she said, you're going to be on what she called the universal payroll. And I said, what does that mean? And of course, she knew that was exactly my fear. And she said, you will never have to worry about money ever again. You know, she said, you'll actually be quite surprised as to how well you do in that space. But I was very scared. I was very, very scared. But what she gave me in that moment was she gave me faith. You know, it was a piece of faith. And, you know, I jumped off the cliff, and, you know, as our mind will do when we jump off cliffs, it will say, now keep yourself nice and straight. Make sure your arms are folded. Make sure you're ready to do that pin drop into the water. Don't do a belly flop, you know, et cetera, et cetera. That's our ego talking quite often. You know, so the ego certainly does have a part to play, but sometimes it has too much to say, you know. But that's awesome, Andre, because I know your journey. And the thing that's so wonderful about your journey as you take that courage and action, again, there will be lots of people that you will help. And that's a great thing for the world.
Thank you.
Very, very cool. Awesome. So now I'm going to go to the last bit. And the last bit that I promised that I was going to talk about is how to create income, you know, and how to actually utilize some of these sorts of strategies as income. And something that I've discovered over the years is that, you know, when you follow your heart, the biggest doubt that we often have is, you know, usually time. Will I have the time? That's usually one excuse we put ahead of our success. And the other excuse is often money. You know, will I make the money or have the money to be able to do what I really, truly want to do? And so these are the things that often get in the way of opportunity. But these days, if you think about it, particularly in this digital world, it is so easy for anybody to be able to increase their income. It is so easy these days for anyone to create any income. You know, but the thing that we've got to do is we've got to be able to follow our heart, but then we have to let our heads start building the strategy, start building the skeletal structure of this new way of doing things. So what I want to share is I'm going to share again my screen, and let's go to this particular point. By the way, while we were going, we had some beautiful little pictures and things that you probably didn't see because essentially we were going through them. So how you can earn a full-time income part-time. So this is why that you must have a strategy and overcome fear. So basically, what I'm going to take you into is our life coaching NLP practitioner certificate. So this is where I started my journey after coaching. So when I basically learned this was a big game changer for me, because I remember always wanting to learn NLP. I remember talking about it for many, many years, but never actually did it. So, you know, I started to learn that there were some pretty amazing people that had used NLP, and I was very curious as to how they actually used NLP. Oprah Winfrey used NLP a great deal, of course, in her own personal development, but in her courage as well. Now, if you go back to when Oprah started, she zigged while everyone was zagging. So what I mean by that is most journalists typically would take a negative approach, you know, look at the negative things that are happening in the world. Oprah Winfrey decided that she didn't want to go down that path. She wanted to look at the positive things that were happening in the world. So that took a lot of courage, because everyone said to her, there's no way that's going to work. You know, it's just not going to work. So, of course, she followed her heart. She became courageous. She built strategy. And she also, later on, she met this man, Steven Spielberg. Now, what happened was Steven and Oprah spoke, and Oprah was on a network, and Steven said, you really have to own the content, Oprah. If you really want to change lives, if you really want to equally become very wealthy, you have to own the content. And of course, she was working for a station, and that particular station paid her a salary, but she didn't own her content. Steven Spielberg also had done NLP and highly recommended to Oprah that she continues her journey in that space, because he's a big fan of neuro-linguistic programming as well. Darren Brown is, you know, a mindset specialist that does illusory type tricks and things on TV. Also, you know, who you've got there is Russell Brand. Russell Brand, by the way, has become a major voice on YouTube and Rumble as well for many things that are going on in the world at the moment. Highly recommend you have a listen. Tony Robbins was probably the most famous person in the NLP space. He decided that he trained with lots of people who were, at the time, who were basically working in a space of psychology and psychiatry and so forth. And when he learned NLP, he said, that's it, I'm going to go out and change the world. And his fellow students said, no, Tony, you can't. You've got to do years and years and years and years of practice. And he said, rubbish. I know what to do now. I'm going to go out and help people now. And of course, the rest is history. He has helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people around the world. President Bill Clinton also learnt NLP actually through Tony Robbins. It got him out of a lot of trouble, in fact. Hugh Jackman had some challenges with getting up on stage. And I'm not talking about movies, I'm talking more about in theatre. And it was a different anchor for him. It was a different environment for him. And he had a lot of challenges being able to get up and do that. And of course, he was helped with NLP to be able to, you know, do that and also further his career. So these particular people basically really got to the top of their industry, you know, by really mastering their mindset. And that's what it all comes down to, really mastering your mindset. But it's not just your mind, it's your heart and your gut too. You've got to bring them along on the journey. This particular gentleman, he said, my mind was being blown, you know, every single hour of, you know, the course. And he said it was absolutely, truly, truly amazing. And he was completely blown away. But just to give you an insight into his story, and this is where a lot of us get stuck. We have a certain mindset that kind of stops us. He has a beautiful story. I asked him, I said, what do you really want to achieve with the course? And he had a very beautiful answer. He said, I have never had a girlfriend. I really would love to have someone very special in my life. And I can't remember how long it was. I think it was a week or a month. But after a week or a month after finishing the course, he met his wife. They now have kids. He's now a very happy man. And he's a lovely man. And he deserved to be happy. So in the NLP program, basically, a lot of my secrets to my achievement have really come from these. It was really the foundational NLP and life coaching skills that I took out of this course to be able to help myself. So I helped myself, but I also used it to help other people. And that became my heart's desire. That's really where I wanted to go. And I also had a program where I really believed that I was stupid. I didn't think I had a good memory, and I didn't think that I was able to learn. For those of you that were on, on Breakthrough yesterday, you know that there was actually someone who told me that I was stupid, and I believed them. So I had to get rid of that. And also I had a lot of trauma in my past. So a lot of the traumatic stuff that was going on in my life was really causing me a lot of harm. My negative emotions were altering my vibration, and I had to learn how to change that. And problem solving. Problem solving at the end of the day is what we have to get good at in order to be able to keep moving ourselves forward. It's something that can be highly desirable because we all have problems. We will all have problems. We'll have problems in our business. We'll have problems in our lives, and they'll never go away. And the reason they won't ever go away is because when we keep moving, we keep starting to realize that certain things, like going down a river, are going to come along the current that are going to get in our way. But our job is to get beyond that. And I also really mastered specialized tools to improve my money mindset. I had a massive poverty mindset going on. And then I discovered how to identify my limits, remove them, and improve my level of communication. So these were essentially from a skill-based, and as we were talking yesterday on the mastery model, the very top of the pyramid was essentially, getting to build our skill. So this gave me a great deal of skill. And when my skill increased, my value increased. And so as a result of that, what I did is I focused very much in coaching. So I got certified, and so I ended up essentially getting an NLP practitioner certification, an Ericksonian hypnotherapist certification, and a life coach certification. So basically, this allowed me to become a professional in this space, and that's essentially where I focused. So what we spoke yesterday that I was creating 30% discounts to our life coaching course, our speaker course, our trainer course, and our master's course. But what I didn't share is that I'm also going to give some extra bonuses as well. So we created a program a number of years ago, which was all based on a richer way to think. And some of the things that I want to share are very much from that. So we created a program called Millionaire Master Academy, and it was really about helping people to think like millionaires, to start thinking in a way to increase their income, or increase their business or increase their cash flow. So that was very much essentially the focus of it. So with our life coach program, we have placed this within it as essentially a bonus. So basically our life coach program, if we take the 30% off, just so you know, it comes to 2,772. So that means that it's just over $1,000 off that particular program. And we also have a payment plan. So we have reduced the payment plan as well. So that works out to $1,188 off that life coach and NLP practitioner program. And you also get Millionaire Master Academy with that particular program. Now, in the context of money and creating extra money, what I personally did with this course is I took this out and I started building various programs. So the way that I suggest to our students to do this is when they're doing the program, I suggest that what they do is they start coaching or working in the evenings, and charging somewhere in the vicinity of about $200, and just as a guide, and doing that about 5 times a week. So basically, if people do that part-time, 5 times a week, what that means is they make about $52,000 extra a year. It means they can still work doing what they're doing, keep their cash flow, but what they can also do is create an extra income. So for way under $3,000, for example, that can be a massive return, And so what you can actually do is you can create extra income, but the extra income is by coaching. So that's one way to create extra income. If you think about it, everybody has problems. Everybody does. And so some people, what they will do is they will go to people to be able to help them to solve those problems. And if they then charge for the solving of the problems, that becomes an income for them. So that's one particular way to create income. So the next way to create an income is this is now the leverage piece. So we think of solving problems. That's one way to create extra income. And you could do that in so many ways. You could solve so many people's problems, but you've got to be able to commercialize it and structure it so that it becomes essentially an extra income source. Now, this is another way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it is this can become a leverage piece. So think about it in this context. You've got solving of problems, which is coaching, but this is now training or speaking or giving information. So you can also create extra income by being a speaker. And what we did when I did this particular program, this actually is part 1 of our trainer training, our speaker program. This essentially, the first focus of this is removing your fear of public speaking. It's one of the fundamental things that you've got to do as a speaker is get up without having fear. And the most important piece in that is if you can get over your fear, what you're now able to do is leverage your voice. So instead of just working one-on-one, you can now work one-on-many. But of course, having more people in a room usually brings up people's fear. So the first thing in our speaker training is helping people to lower that and remove that particular fear. So you've also got to be able to master the art. You've also got to master the art of stagecraft and also be able to build rapport. That's also what we teach in our speaker training. And turn your talk into a significant income for life. Now, why I say significant income is what you can do is you can work as a keynote speaker. You could also work as a trainer. So one way to think about this is that what you can do as a trainer, like as a coach, your income is typically based on time. So you can only earn as much as you have time. Unless you broaden that and you start doing more speaker work, and instead of working one-on-one, you now work one-on-many. So in other words, group coaching. So for example, one of my students created a boardroom, after they finished speakers and they finished their life coach training, they then started building boardrooms. And what they did is they created a very specific boardroom. This boardroom was to help businesses to go from 5 figures to 6 figures. And so that's what they did. So they taught businesses how to go from 5-figure earnings to 6-figure earnings. Then what they did is they then further down the track, they created another boardroom that once they worked out the art, they were able to now take them from 6 figures to 7 figures. So they created a whole other boardroom. And they were charging around $15,000 to attend those boardrooms. And so that's a great way to kind of leverage your income. So also the next thing that you've got to be able to learn as a speaker is also to be able to sell from the stage. So when you get up on stage and you talk about the things that you have as your offerings, as your coaching of, or whatever it is, you have to understand the structure of how you present things in a way that becomes appropriate to your audience and to their needs. And so that way, this was a huge learning for me. When my mentor encouraged me to get out and start speaking, I remember I did a talk, and I got out and I did this talk, and everything that he told me would happen happened in a much bigger way than I could imagine. I earned, in this one talk, I earned the total salary that I had earned in 3 months in one talk, which all of a sudden my mind exploded. And I thought, wow, I only have to do this 4 times a year to earn my entire income. And of course, the second time I did it, I did a lot better than that. But the thing is that it's stagecraft, it's structure, it's understanding psychology. So together with the NLP and the life coach understandings and all the psychology, this really makes this a great leverageable tool. So the next thing that you also get with this program is discover how to produce programs that sell while you sleep. And this is leveraging off the bonus that we add to this program. And I'll talk about that in a moment. So also learn the techniques and tricks that pro speakers use that makes them sound, look, and be professional. You know, so most of our students start as an amateur and then end up as a polished professional speaker. You know, so that's the outcome of that particular course. So Mandy was one of our students. She said, Rick is an excellent trainer, full of inspiration, expertise, and always delivers beyond the promises he makes. I have a reputation for being generous. I like to give. I like to give our students as much as they can get. And this course, she said, this course helped me to grow into a successful full-time coach and trainer. She now does a lot of training, more so than coaching. So she tends to leverage her work more than one-on-one work, and she's a delightful human being. She really, really is. So, you know, at the end of the day, the thing that you can do when you know how to present, you know how to speak, and there aren't all the ums and ahs and all of the things that drive people crazy. What you can actually do now is you can leverage. Think of something that you already know to do and you do it really well. If you could now package that up, film yourself or film it, put it all together, put it in modulated form, then you can actually create online courses that sell while you sleep. This is how people leverage their income. In other words, most of us are caught up in time for money. You know, whenever we go to work, that's the only time we earn. So if you can create more opportunities where you're actually earning outside of your working, then what happens is that really leverages what you do. So the bonus that we give with our speaker training is a program we built during COVID called Income Incubator. So it's basically everything you need to know in order to build online courses, to be able to platform them, put them up, put them in a sequence, and put them all together so that you can actually create income while you're not working. So that's Income Incubator, and you get that as a bonus with speaker training. So speaker training, to go through the details with you, again, we've taken our 30% off our speaker training. So it's only $2,497. That's the lowest it's ever going to be. And we've got 2 ways to do that. We've got a 12-month payment plan, which is $256 per month. And we've even got from that, we've got a 24-month payment plan, that works out at $112 a month. So at the end of the day, this particular training is a real game changer. It's the leverage piece. So that's another way that you can grow your income. You've got to begin to think about, how can you leverage what you do? How can you leverage the thing that people usually pay for you time-wise, and then work out how can you build it in a way that you're not having to show up all the time, or you're able to leverage. So what you give to one person, you give to many, and that's another way that you can actually grow your income. So that's basically all of these are essentially on the breakthrough page. So what we've done to make this even simpler is we've gotten rid of the coupon code. All of those programs, if you go to the breakthrough page, they'll all be at the bottom, and you just click on them. You can read more about the programs. I didn't want to, turn this into a big sell fest or anything like that. I just want to make you aware of these programs, because I know some of you have reached out and want to do more. And these are the programs that I put up. I haven't spoken about masters because I want to be a bit respectful of time. I don't want to go on too much longer about this, but I didn't want you to miss out on this either. So these are the programs. There's the life coach, the master coach, the speaker training, and the trainer training. The trainer training I haven't spoken about either. And I'm happy to even speak with you personally if you've got any questions about any of these. So basically what we'll do is we'll do a question time if you do have any questions, but I do want to thank you enormously for showing up here, for those of you that were here on Saturday and Sunday. And for those of you that came today, of course, I'll give you the recording of yesterday if you want to go back. They will be up there forever, so you can keep reviewing them if you want to. And if you want to take us up on any of the discounts on any of our programs, Breakthrough is the page to go to, and all the details are there at the very, very bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop share for a moment and throw it to you all. We've covered a huge amount of content. I was a bit mindful that we had 2.5 hours on Saturday, 2.5 hours on the Sunday. Breakthrough typically used to run for at least 7 hours on 7 hours on Saturday, 7 hours on Sunday. And I wanted to make sure that I gave you as much value as I possibly could. It has meant that I have run pretty fast with the content. So now I'm going to throw it over to you. Do you have any questions or anything that you want to share, prior to us wrapping up? We've done quite well on time. We've got to 12:08. So we're about 8 minutes over. So by the way, if you know me, that's not a bad record. I usually do a lot worse than that. So over to you. Do you have any questions before we wrap up about anything at all?
I just want to say thanks, Rick. That was really a wonderful 2 days. It really went really well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Connie. I appreciate you coming, and thank you very much for that comment. Thank you. One of the things that you of course hope for is that you've gained a lot from everything that we've been able to share here. The thing that I really wanted you to get was, from all of the years of coaching, I wanted to be able to kind of synthesize what I've learned to be able to use in your own lives. So I hope I've been able to achieve that, and that you've, got some great value over these 2 days. So thank you. Cool, Mr. Andre.
Rick, I want to thank you for this breakthrough. I think it should be obligatory that after people have gone through all these courses with you, they should do a breakthrough, because it just culminizes everything together. I have had so many questions answered, so many problems solved, so many ideas put out there. I think it has been absolutely brilliant, and thank you very much for putting it on. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. And thank you. And it's a great suggestion, really. I often don't think about it because, I think that the information that I'm sharing isn't advanced as the courses that you've done. But the truth is that because you've done the courses, what I've shared here, you're bringing a higher level knowledge to it. So you really do understand what I'm sharing, and you also understand, the stuff underneath what I've shared, which is absolutely fantastic. But I do take your recommendation on board, and I will promote it to our student base as well. So thank you. Awesome.
Thanks,
Anything?
Rick. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate your time and your energy is always great. Thank you for giving it 100% as always. It was awesome 2 days. I've got a lot of golden nuggets that I'll definitely be working on. And again, thank you, and thank everybody for being here. So it's great. Thanks.
Awesome. And thank you too for you coming. We had the chance to have a good old chat while everyone was in the breakouts. So that was also good for me. So thank you kindly.
No worries. Thanks, Rick.
So thank you, everyone. We are just a little bit over time. So thank you so much for coming to Breakthrough. Have an amazing rest of Sunday. And I'll make sure that everyone puts this up on YouTube so you can watch it again should you wish to. And have an amazing weekend. So thank you kindly, everyone.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks so much, Rick.
Bye.
That was fantastic.
Thanks, Rick.
Cheers, Rick.
See you.
Rick.
Bye.
See you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye, folks.